Welcome to Mass Analytics Podcast, where we bring you the best market and measurement insights, tips, and guide from the world leading expert. I'm Ash, your host, and with us today is Dr. Ramla Jarrar, CEO and Managing Director of Mass Analytics. Ramla, welcome.
Hello, how are you, Ash, today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great as well.
All right. So, last podcast, Ramla, we've talked about in-housing versus agency-led and the differences between the two. Today, I wanted to focus more on agency-led market and mix modeling and basically how we can identify the best performing agencies and how to get the most out of collaborating with an agency. To start, what do you think makes a successful market and measurement agency?
I think that there are a few elements to that. The first one that I would like to cite is the knowledge and expertise and the level of experience of the agency. Because when you work, when you are a brand and you want to trust that agency to provide measurement services to your brand, it's very important that you feel that there is a good stock of experience that these agencies have accumulated over the years to be capable of providing you with sound consultancy. And I would like also to highlight that marketing measurement is not only a science, it's a science and an art, as we have spoken about this in the previous podcast. And there is a lot of element of judgment that enters in the validation of the final models, into the final ROI calculation, and into the optimization exercise. And that's why it's very important to get an agency that is really knowledgeable when it comes to that, so they can bring to the mix that level of knowledge and experience and use cases that they have seen in the past in order to choose the best model, the best optimization, the best scenario for your brand. The second element that I think also makes successful marketing measurement agency is the technology, because marketing mix modeling, as we've seen before, is something that has evolved a lot. There is a lot of modeling techniques that are now must to use as part of your modeling exercise. And in order to be capable of deploying those models the right way, it's very important that those models are backed up by the right technology. So I would probably look for a partner that has the right technology that will enable them to deploy methodologies that can provide me as a brand with granular results that will address exactly the business questions that I have and that I need to answer and address. The third thing I think is what I call sharing and caring. What do I mean by that? I think it's very, very important that you choose an agency whose DNA is around sharing and caring, because you are sharing a lot of information with your agency. They will be sharing a lot of insight and recommendation with you. So they first need to care about you, to care about your brand, to care about your challenges, and to put in the right amount of effort in order to thrive, to answer all your questions, and to bring to you all the solutions that can help you leverage your marketing analytics, get the right solutions, and get the optimal budget allocation and the optimal decision in order to advance your brand. So I think that element of sharing and caring, I know that it's a little bit objective, but you really need to look for partners that have this edge, that where you feel that they are there for you and they will always be there for you. For them, it's not only a contract, it's like a partnership. It's a win-win situation. We grow together.
That does make a lot of sense. More often than not, you'd find agencies that invest heavily into increasing their knowledge and experience and developing technologies, but they fail to tackle that element of managing relationships with the client and providing them with a suitable and comfortable environment to really benefit from the MMM services. In that regard, what would you advise clients looking to hire their first measurement agency? More or less, how would they assess candidates to find the best fit?
So again, we talked about earlier on the element that makes a measurement company successful. I think now if you had to choose a measurement agency, there are 5 elements that you need to look at or you need to assess. The first one is how quick they will be when it comes to data preparation And are they really equipped with the right processes that will enable them to turn the different or the multiple files that come from the different sources that you as a brand will have to tap into to collect your data? Are they capable of ingesting all that data? Are they capable of applying the right transformations in order to prep the data in a way that is ready for modeling? And here, more and more, I would include the element of technology, because only technology can ease up that step and makes it really straightforward. The second one is element is actually the modeling capabilities. Again, that joins a little bit the idea that I was exposing earlier on. It's very important that you pick up an agency that is capable to embrace what I call now modern MMM. So capabilities of log linear in order to count for synergy effects, capabilities of nested modeling in order to look at the direct and indirect impact and the interaction between your offline and online media channels, capabilities of full regression with its fixed effect and random effect to be capable of measuring effects and pulling the data across different stores, across different regions, and understand the impact of both national and regional activities. So these are all under the umbrella of the second element that I have mentioned, which is the modeling capabilities. That's very, very important that you ask those agencies about this. The third element is objectivity. So I think it's very important that you pick up an agency that is independent in the way they present their results. So if I advise you to cut on a specific budget, that advice is genuine. It comes from the modeling exercise. And I, as an agency, I have no pressure whatsoever to orient my results towards a specific channel. So that I think objectivity is very important to make sure that actually there is no pressure on the analytical team and all the results are really derived from the model directly. The third element is technology, and how mature is their technology? Do they use a software for modeling? Do they have a software for optimization? Especially if you are interested in that, are they capable of licensing that software to you so you can optimize on your own, or you can license that software to the media agency or the planners to plan media according to the model? And the fifth element is actually the transparency. I think it's very important that you trust your partner and that your partner offers you like a transparent relationship in the sense that whatever question you have, whatever output you request, the agency is more than happy to share that with you. This is, I think, for me, very important, the transparency element when it comes to choosing your measurement agency.
Absolutely, that does make a lot of sense. When it comes to the model created itself, how would you assess it and how would you evaluate the accuracy, let's say, of the model provided by the MMM provider?
As you know, when we work on modeling, we are generally using statistical methods, and there are certain elements that need to be provided in order to check the robustness of the model. However, when I talk about the robustness of the model, I think it's very important to ensure that you have both the statistical and the commercial validation of the model. And in the statistical itself, you have two elements. You have the overall model statistics, like the R-square, the Durbin-Watson, the F-statistic, the standard error of the estimate. But you also have the variable by variable statistic. And here I think it's very, very important to look at, I'm going to get a little bit technical here, I'm sorry for that, the p-value or the t-stat. Why I would emphasize a lot on you as an advertiser asking for those p-values or t-stat per variable. Because what does it mean, a t-stat or a p-value? It's actually a measure of robustness. It means that how robust is your measure and how confident are you in getting that impact if you were to repeat the same spend on that channel. So if in your model that measure is not robust, it means that you are not confident enough on that measure of ROI. And there's a high chance that if you repeat that activity in the future, you wouldn't obtain the same ROI as your model has predicted in the first place. So for me, one of the most important elements to account for or to request as part of the validation or as part of making sure that actually the model insight and reports are accurate is to request the T-stat or the confidence interval around each variable, so you know whether the error that is being made, is it big, is it small, and that can dictate your future decisions. Also, if you want to predict and if you want to have model updates, the more confident you are on your measurement, the more accurate and the more stable your coefficient will be in the subsequent update. So there are different advantages of keeping an eye on robust T-stats and p-values or confidence intervals. And the other thing that I would probably also add here, ask to look at your diminishing return curves, because diminishing return curves are the basis of optimization. So you being exposed to those diminishing return curves will enable you to know what is the saturation level of each channel, and it can also guide internally your discussions as a business. So I would also say that being exposed to diminishing return curves are also very important. The last element I'm going to cite here is actually the reporting system, because you want your reporting system that the agency is providing or is suggesting to be dynamic rather than static. So at any point in time, you can go back to that reporting system and you are capable of drilling down more granularity into the results.
Thank you, Ramla. Another issue that emerges with navigating the market and measurement industry is differentiating the different offerings that exist. What we do notice in the industry is that there are a lot of buzzwords that are emerging right now that are really difficult to assess the real world viability of them.
I think that you need to look at the maturity of the techniques used. Okay, so I think it's very, very important that you use measurements or techniques or approaches that have proven to be mature to a certain extent. Okay, so that's talking about the past and whether this methodology has been deployed, and whether this methodology, when they have been deployed, what sort of outcome did it create, and where those outcomes really change making for the company. The second element that I would also be looking at here is whether the approach or the measurement is future proof, because you could use something that you think is producing good results today, but that method is not immune to changes in the legislation, in technology, etc., etc. So do not go for a methodology where you know that it won't survive for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, because you'll be basing all your measurement framework on something that is not future proof. I would also ask my agency to provide me with use cases so I see the post-validation, what I call the post-validation, which means that you are recommending I am a brand and you are an agency and you are recommending an approach to me. So first, obviously, I need to see how mature it is. To see how mature it is, it's very important that to show you use cases of clients in my industry that have used that, for whom you have deployed that approach. And you tell me when that approach has been deployed and when recommendations have been derived, and when those recommendations have been applied, what was the impact on the business? So request what I call post-modeling validation. So when we apply the recommendation that were the fruit of that methodology or that approach, what was the real impact on the business and how that approach had positive benefits on the brand and on the progression of the brand when it comes to market share, awareness, etc., etc.
When it comes to these strong measurement approach identifiers that you mentioned, do you think that the size of the agency is valid or is an aspect that should be considered? In other words, is it possible for a small-scale agency to provide strong modeling in today's business environment?
I think if these agencies are capable to tick the 5 boxes that I talked about earlier on in terms of objectivity, in terms of expertise, in terms of transparency, in terms of caring and sharing, etc., then I do think that actually small agencies have sometimes an edge over the bigger agencies, because if you deal with a small agency, so they will be offering you a customized service because you as a client, for them, you are a big fish, and they will have to do everything that is possible for them to do to be capable of keeping that big fish in their client portfolio, and also demonstrating that this client has been with us or with the agency for a number of years is also a great testimonial. So all the agencies in a way start small, and it takes them that first, second, third client that trust them to be capable of progressing. So I do think that actually big brands can benefit, and even like smaller brands can benefit from working with small agencies, if of course these agencies have the right expertise and experience to leverage and to derive the right results. So yes, I am in favor of that. Ourselves, Mass Analytics, when we look for suppliers, we do consider both big and small companies, and we don't really disregard small companies just because they are small. My experience, at least personally, is that I always have very customized services when I get a smaller supplier, and that element of caring and sharing is really persistent and is there in the context of small agencies. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist in bigger companies, but I would say that smaller companies are very, very eager to have you as part of their portfolio, and they will do all what it takes to keep you happy and satisfied.
Yeah, exactly. It's really good to know that even in today's business environment, it's still possible to compete, provided you're more than capable to give the right kind of service and the right kind of care to your clients. Ramla, I know you don't have a lot of time, so we're just going to conclude with this question. What constitutes a deal breaker when it comes to dealing with your current MMM provider? When should a client start considering making some changes, in a sense?
Okay, so here I think what I'm gonna say, Ash, doesn't only apply to MMM provider, but it really applies to any supplier of services. So I think the minute that you feel that you are taken for granted, that's where I think it's time for you to think about other possibilities. Because in measurement, so we do models, yes, and then we do model updates, okay? And we know that the biggest pain is in the beginning when you are creating your very first project. That's where you get to know the brand. That's where you are curious about knowing all the factors that influence the sales of that brand. And that's also where you would be trying to be creative in terms of what is the approach that I need to choose for my modeling in order to create something that is sound and something that will impress my clients. Now, when you do the updates, when you start doing many updates or multiple updates, sometimes I can understand that some agencies will lose that eagerness, because for them, it's a deja vu. It's the same brand, it will be impacted by the same factors, and I'll be just applying the same variables, and I click on a button, I'm gonna get my results. I will produce results in the same format with the same insight. And I think that's the moment where the client would feel that is being taken for granted. And I think that I know that updates tend sometimes to be talking about the same thing and providing the same insight. But I am also sure that in every single update, there are new things that the client has done and that the agency needs to take into consideration and know of and be curious to know, to be capable of improving their models and provide granular results when it comes to this. This will have two benefits. It will make the update less boring for the client and for the agency. And at the same time, it will, at each update, you as an agency, you have something new that will keep your client happy, that will keep your client hooked, and your client won't have the feeling that is being taken for granted. And that's my advice for those who want to continue working for a brand. Don't take that brand for granted. Always look for the small thing that has changed, that the brand manager or the marketing manager has implemented, and that he or she are very keen to know the result from, and give them really always creative ways of looking at the insights and recommendations.
Absolutely, Ramla. That's quite insightful. If you work with the model and the data long enough, there's always something new to present to the client. Well, that's all the time we have. Ramla, thank you very much for your time. This has been Mass Analytics Podcast. We hope to see you in future ones. Goodbye, everyone. Goodbye,
Thank
Ramla.
you. Thank you very much, Ash. Speak to you soon.